Iro, δεν σ' ακούμε. We can't hear you. You are muted.
We lose your voice.
You are muted.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's okay.
Welcome everyone to the third session of this hybrid Asterousia University. As we wrote in the chat, we had snow earlier this week in Athens, an unexpected amount of snow that kept us at home, so everyone is connecting from their home. Today, we hope that internet connections will be operating functional so that we won't lose anyone. And without further ado, let me just share my screen to explain again, like every week, what we will be doing today. So, like in previous weeks, and since we start to get familiarized with your faces, we invite you to leave your cameras on and to keep your microphone off. You can interact through the chat box with us to ask questions. And also through the Slido link that is available every week in order to direct your questions to the experts that we have. So we are now a little over the mid-session. We are within the third week. We are focusing this week on coastal and marine topics. From the point of view of the biodiversity expert, from the point of view of the manager, and also from the point of view of educators. So there are various videos in this week with which you are already, some of you are already in contact, you have viewed them. And as for this session, like in previous times, we will briefly cover what we have done already in weeks 1 and 2. And then we will have about 30 minutes we will give to the two experts we have with us this week to respond to your questions, the ones you already made. But of course, you can write, if you have any urgent question, you can write them also in the chat. We will devote some more time for the breakout exercise, and we will close the meeting. Browsing back to week number 1, where we set the general framework around sustainability, I'd like to invite you to go back to the content of this week, because in the Padlets that are co-created by all of you, you will see some rich content. I've highlighted here some quotes given by you, for example, on what is sustainability. We discussed also earlier some success factors. We watched several videos about these success factors for a good, successful nomination of a site to become BR. And these are some quotes again that were put from you in the respective Trisider. Responding a little bit to the evaluation comments that you made in the second week, we see that you start to get accustomed with the way the platform operates, and we are happy about that. You start to see the context. We have the videos, we have reading material, we have optional content, and we have a lot of input from Asterousia, which is not obligatory, but we are very happy that many of you watch these videos, and really everything starts to be in place, and you get the whole idea behind this e-course. And we are happy to see that various types of content suits various types of learners. There was a question regarding the lab tool, the landscape assessment protocol that was presented by Ms. Vlami last week. Ms. Vlami was not with us, but she is following also with us the course. She was not in the live session we had, but she will be happy also to receive your assignments in case you choose to do the lab tool that has been applied in these countries that you see in Greece, Cyprus, Costa Rica, Mexico, and so on. You have made some useful suggestions. So in case we redo this course, next year we might implement what you're suggesting us to break the videos in a summarized and then an extended version form, or to include the text ask speakers, to include a text summary of the main points after each video. There were some complaints. I understand why we had some delays in the breakout rooms in the previous in our previous meeting. We will try to organize it better this time. Let's see how this will go. And apart from Professor Skoulos, whom you all know, he is the scientific coordinator of this e-course and all the previous Asterousia universities and all the previous summer universities that we had in live form. We have together with us Thomais Vlachogianni. She's a colleague from MIO. She's an environmental chemist and ecotoxicologist. She has a vast experience that stretches over vast environmental research and management areas, including marine litter. In many European projects that she has taken part, she has led marine litter activities addressing monitoring, prevention, and mitigation aspects. She shared with us 2 lectures this week, and she will be responding to your questions. Before we ask the experts, I think I will stop sharing. And maybe, Vicky, you can proceed with some polling exercises.
Yes, hello from me too. Let's start with the first question that is about, again, your progress in the course. We keep asking it because it helps us to track your way through the course and adapt our work during the webinars and the next unit. So please be frank and let us know from 1 to 4, how much have you progressed in the course? Are you just registered? Are you still in the first 2 weeks, or are you already working in week 3? Okay, you have a few more seconds to complete it. I see now that you have completed the answers. So most of you are already in the current week, in week 3, and some of you have already completed it. Let's move on now with 3 more questions focused in this week's theme, that is about ocean and marine environment and related issues. So let me share the next question with you, that is about your personal relationship. What is the personal connection that you have with the sea or the ocean? So how much do you feel that you are connected to the sea or the ocean? You may rate from 1 to 4. Not at all, a little, enough, absolutely. Okay, I see that you have stopped completing the poll. So I'm going to share with you the results. It seems that most of us today are ocean or sea lovers, let's say. We are absolutely, as you say, connected to the sea and the ocean. Next question is about your capacity, in which way you are engaged to ocean and marine topics as educators, as professionals in special designated areas that are coastal or marine, as researchers or other. If you wish, you can complete. If you choose other, you may complete it in the chat. Okay, I will share with you now the results. So it seems that most of you today, you are working on marine topics in another capacity, let's say, such as, I see some answers in the chat as ecologists, as teachers, though we had also option 1 about teaching, working in sites and protected sites, or in BRs, or I see also a very interesting reply. I'm taking people on yacht tours as here. Okay. And last but not least, this poll is about how are you willing to be engaged in marine litter monitoring actions and activities in your area. Again, you reply from 1 to 4. 1 stands for not, this is not applicable in my case. 2 is a little, 3 quite much, and 4 are absolutely willing to be engaged in marine litter monitoring activities. Okay, I see that you have stopped replying, so let me share again the results. It seems that for most of you are willing to take part and to be engaged in actions related to monitoring marine litter in coastal and marine areas. So this was our polls for today about your profile and your interests in this week's topics. That's all from me for the moment, Iro, about the polls. The floor is yours.
The last question actually is a good connection to Tommy, our expert who gave this, one of her lectures was focused on a methodology on how we can systematically monitor marine litter in our area. So I think this is my connection to Tommy. I will invite her to reflect to the questions that were posed to her. You can do all the questions that you have at your hand, Tommy, all at once, and then we will proceed with Professor Schools.
Okay, thank you, Iro, and hello everyone, nice to see you. I hope you found this e-learning course very useful and you will be able to apply at least some of the things that you have learned. So yeah, let's go to the first question. Let me have a look. I will most probably start from the recent one because I think that this was the only one related to marine litter monitoring or marine litter in general. And the question reads as follows: is there research on the impact of the microlitter particles that are and can be digested by marine life? So basically, there are many studies about the ingestion of microparticles and in particular microplastics by marine organisms. I dare say that there is a wealth of this kind of studies, but of course, what are the effects of these microplastics and whether these microplastics are digested or exerted by the marine organisms, these are studies more rare. However, there are some studies that indicate, for example, that krills or other marine organisms, they can break down microplastics to nanoplastics. And this is one of, and then of course, obviously they exert some of this, they excrete, sorry. So I don't know if the question was related to the ingestion of microplastics or how microplastics are being digested and excreted by the marine organisms. So yes, there are some studies on the excretion part, but few. Then I see that there was another question about the multitude of protocols due to the pragmatic, but of course it's not here specifying whether we are talking about marine litter or are we talking about the MPA Engage project and the monitoring protocols in order to detect the climate change effects. I don't know, I will try to respond then to both because it's not clarified in the question to which it refers to. So for the climate change effects, because I presented several protocols, 11 in fact, the reason for that multitude of protocols is related to the fact that different parameters and different effects are being monitored, like the water temperature or the occurrence of extreme events or invasive species occurrence, etc., etc. So obviously there is a need for a multitude amount of protocols in order to detect the different impacts. And obviously for the MPAs, the application of some of these protocols is more easy or more straightforward, maybe because it doesn't require a very sophisticated equipment. But for example, other protocol, or maybe it doesn't require a lot of time. But for example, other protocols may need more time or more enhanced skills. But the idea of this, for example, 11 protocols presented, is to try at Mediterranean and MPA scale to collect information on the climate change effects in a harmonized way. So this means that the results will be able to be compared. This was actually part of the question. And indeed, they have been used by these MPAs in order to develop assessment reports, and these reports have been coupled with vulnerability assessment reports in order then to predict, to develop scenarios on how climate change can affect these MPAs and eventually feed into the decision-making process and identify the appropriate responses. So this was for the climate change effects. And then for marine litter, I specifically presented one protocol. There are other protocols out there, and by talking about, when we refer to protocol, we don't just mean the classification list of the litter items, but we mean the size of the sampling unit, we mean the localization of the sampling unit, small things that formulate the step-by-step process to actually survey marine litter. And sadly, the use of multitude protocols in the field of marine litter has hampered down, on the one side, the comparability of the results. I mean, even now, we are not yet there at pan-European level to say that we have comparable results across all European regional seas. And this is why this group that I was discussing in my lecture, the technical group on marine litter, is constantly striving to elaborate further one protocol, which eventually will be deployed by all countries in order to generate reliable data, fit for purpose data, and comparable data. So this was about the second question. And the third is again related to the MPA Engage project. And the question was, what was the greatest challenge in implementing the 5-phase planning process and how did we overcome it? Of course, as I explained during my lecture, this 5-phase planning process was implemented in 7 different MPAs, and depending on the specificities of the MPAs, different challenges were encountered because the 5-phase planning and quantitative participatory process are they are driven by the local contexts of these MPAs. However, just if I would pick some of the challenges, the major challenges that perhaps were encountered by all MPAs, one of them was building trust, the trust of the different stakeholders to participate in the process and feel comfortable enough to share their concerns and to provide constructive input in the process. And building trust, maybe Professor Skoulas can also complement later on that, is a very difficult issue. It requires time, it requires commitment on the part of MPA managers who set up this particular process. It requires resources, and it requires to some extent also engagement, involvement activities of the different stakeholders so that they feel that they're part of this process. So it takes time. So this was one of the biggest challenges at the end of the day, that having this planning phase and ensuring the participation of stakeholders is a very time-consuming process. Another major challenge was the timing of this process. The thing is that obviously due to COVID-19, there was no way to have physical meetings, which in some MPAs, it wasn't a major hindrance, maybe because these MPAs were more used to collect input to similar processes via surveys and online events. But for other MPAs who were more used to, in a more traditional way of engaging the different stakeholders, this proved to be a major hindrance. And obviously, to some extent, this challenge could be overcome within the context of the project. And also another major problem was, of course, that some of the stakeholders could not be reached, or not all stakeholders were accessible, let's put it like that. And the reason for that, again, in some cases had to do with timing, because obviously during the summer season, engaging the tourism-related stakeholders is not so easy, simply because they're extremely busy dealing with the tourism peak. So that's why in some cases we had to rearrange the timeline of the activity. I cannot go into more details because there are several other questions. And the next question had to do with how did the project goals and deliverables link with the long-term management plan and operation in each site? Yes, maybe this was not very obvious in the short talk that I gave in the presentation, that in fact the actual elaboration of the climate change adaptation plan was initiated by the MPA itself. So basically the MPA had identified the need to elaborate an adaptation plan or identify climate change adaptation measures to be included in their existing overall management plan. So since the very beginning of the process, the link between the project's goals and deliverables and the actual management process of the MPAs was there. It was a demand-driven project. So basically, this project responded to the need of the MPA managers in complementing their long-term management plans with climate change priorities. And I think that I'm done with the questions. unless there is another one in the chat.
There is some response to what you are saying in the chat, but it's not in the form of questions. So
Okay.
you can read this. And we invite Professor Skoulos to contribute to these and the rest of the questions that were posed in the slide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you also, Thomi, for the first hint you made on trust. It is the most difficult thing because this need to be developed throughout the project and at the first steps, and particularly in building the vision. In building the vision, you build also the trust, but this needs time, as you mentioned, and physical presence. Is very, very difficult to build trust through the internet, and particularly because you have to see people, you know, in their eyes in order to do that. And also the one who is going to coordinate this should have some experience, willingness to communicate, and it depends a lot on the coordinator. It is very important for people who deal with this discussion to develop these skills. It is important. It is, at the end of the day, also a cultural issue. The way in which it's not the same everywhere. It is not, sometimes is totally different. Even, you know, when we are talking about the Mediterranean, sometimes the same process, let's say in Morocco or in Lebanon or in Greece, is totally different. The dynamics of the meeting are different based on the different cultures. Now, on the other point, on the other question about the digestion and impacts, there are, as Thomi said, very some studies, but not so much on the impact, because all what the starting point from that is extrapolation of the toxicological data into ecotoxicological. We don't have enough ecotoxicological data and over a long period. Usually the idea was always towards two ends. The one is taking the plasticizers and what is actually extractable from plastics. And the assumption is that in digesting, you may be infected by that, and the other is purely mechanical. So we don't have yet enough data. By extrapolating, we assume that there might be some problems, but we don't have yet enough evidence. Now, I come to the questions addressed to me and the others. From Pedro, I have a question about culture should be highlighted as a tool to achieve sustainable development because old sustainable practices which ensured resilience were abandoned, forgotten. Yes, it is true that we need to build and utilize as much as possible existing and revived, if you wish, in some cases, cultures. But this is not always possible because many of the traditional practices have been abandoned. and we cannot actually revive them. To give you an example, I mean, people, to reduce forest fires, you have to remember that there were people living in the forest. They don't live any longer. For collecting, let's say, wild mushrooms, for collecting pine tree resin. So the presence of these people in remote areas was a guarantee that you know, a small fire or whatever was immediately noticed and addressed. Also, you know, grazing practices and other things. Now they reintroduce actually even goats in forests, in developed forests. So yes, at the same time, there are innovative practices inspired by old ones that replace them. So we need both. There was a question to Mrs. Santoro, how a biosphere reserve could benefit from the UN ocean decade. Well, I think the answer is in many ways, because a biosphere reserve involved, and we are talking about a coastal one, involved in the ocean decade, may enlarge its activities, may cooperate with other organizations and schemes, so enhancing its importance, cooperating, communicating. This might be, might have within it adopted sites which help in maintaining or using in a sustainable way parts of the biosphere reserves. Is a new theme in their program. For 10 years, they may develop and contribute and may develop programs with particularly educational ones. So there are short and medium term benefits and long term when we think about increasing or trying to get more resources for kind of activities in these areas. There is an additional argument and additional function. There are other several questions to Thanos about the herbivorous fish. And what he said about actually deforestation, marine deforestation by too many herbivorous fishes. I think what he meant and he said is he connected it with the alien species, many species that are not actually, were not in the ecosystem, and species that for this reason, they didn't have enough enemies, enough predators. And of course, in some cases, we need to intervene. We hope that the system might balance in some time, but with food chains, normally, let's say. But it is at the same time, in many cases, we have intervention of through fishing of these species. And what happened is that some of these species that originally were considered as not suitable for for human for as food species, as eatable, and now they are actually used. So the major predator will be again humans. These are more or less the questions. There is a question by Badrono from Philippines. Will my children experience clear seas some days? We hope so, but well, our analysis are not still very optimistic. It is what we want, and we have to. I mean, if we reach the Sustainable Development Goals, we hope that we have better conditions. On the other hand, we see the difficulties until now in implementing pledges, but we have to try. I mean, in Greece, I should say that I have observed this improvement because of the implementation in the 90s and late 80s, 90s, and in this century of more restrictions for the European legislation, and also the modernization of the production. So throughout at least the Mediterranean, we have now sewage treatment plants, which help a lot. And industry is moving to cleaner technologies. So all these hopefully will result in a better environment. I don't have any other question to answer, unless there is any question that you want to raise now.
Thank you, Professor. I don't see any hands raised. You're welcome to do so throughout this session, as you know. But in order to keep up also with the time, and as we are discussing this, we are getting warmed up with all these interesting issues around the ocean and the ocean literacy. I propose to move to the group work session. So maybe I can explain. The question for this week. So we have been discussing this week in the framework of the UN Decade for the Ocean, all these issues about marine biodiversity, the threats, the challenges, especially marine litter, and how we can monitor it, how we can engage stakeholders in marine protected areas and biosphere reserves, and what is the aspect of the concept of ocean literacy within the Ocean Decade. We've discussed some educational projects, and we have ended with the water, energy, food, and ecosystems nexus approach. So for this week, in the presentation of Ms. Santoro, we show the, let's say, the definition of the ocean literate person. Who is considered ocean literate? Is someone that understands the importance of the ocean, can communicate it in meaningful ways, and can make informed decisions about the ocean and its resources. So this is the general outview of the ocean literate person. And now in the next 15 minutes, we would like to invite you in your groups to discuss exactly this concept. What are the concepts behind this ocean literate person? What does this person need to know, need to be able to do, maybe even need to feel in order to render him ocean literate? What are the most useful or important concepts for this ocean literate person? This is the same question for all groups. So we will split in groups of 5 to 6 people. We will have enough time, and within 15 minutes that we will have in our groups, you can introduce yourselves, say a few things about where you come from and your background, assign a rapporteur, discuss the key question, which concepts you consider most useful or important for the ocean literate person. And then we will have around 15 minutes back in plenary from the rapporteurs to have altogether a discussion. I hope this is clear. And I hope that we will not have the problems of previous week. I will ask our Zoom ninja, which is Olga, to help us with
I'm opening them, yes, right now.
Towards
Yes.
So you will see.
Give me some time to start distributing people. You are going to see in on your screen, say, window, saying that
there is a question about concepts. What Iro mentioned is that we moved not only to cognitive, let's say, competences, knowledge of what, but we need to have knowledge, some knowledge, but extend also to sociokinetic or other skills and involvement, if you wish. This is
yes. So starting from what Ms. Santoro gave us a definition, we discuss further what are the characteristics of this ocean literate person, which will be asked to help to shape in the next decade. Huh? We can
don't leave out also themes of knowledge also, apart from saying knowledge in general. We need to see which are the areas where you feel that are more important for someone to feel comfortable with the knowledge and the feeling of the sea and the ocean.
So we hope to see you in a breakout room now. Professor, we don't hear you.
Well, I'm here. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Okay. So I hope this was more relaxing activity for everyone. We had some more time, just only one question to discuss. And I don't know, Professor, do you want to coordinate the way?
I don't see people. I don't know what's going on, Olga. I don't see people.
We are here. We are here. We are
are
in real
back.
time.
And we see you.
We see you.
I don't see you anyhow. Please help me to.
Maximize your window.
No, there is nothing.
It is downstairs. It is at the
It's okay. I
bottom
don't
of
know.
the screen.
No. Anyhow, never mind. I cannot. So let's have the first group to report.
Good afternoon, all.
Olga. Yeah.
But I will call you.
May I go ahead? All right. So to understand it was first a conversation where in our group shared their thoughts and challenges. So I'll give an example, or to start off with, is that it's not just in the sea, but in the rivers as well. So what's happening at the sources are going down to the sea and going right around the world. And so that person needs to also have a broad understanding of, to not just say the litter came from this person or that person, will be able to open and to share and engage with people on where things have come from, trace that, and then work out what is the best way to deal with it going forward. There was an example given by Antonio about a problem with ships coming into the area and dumping their sewage waste into the sea. And by approaching these companies and actually going to the owners of these companies and engaging with them, they've now managed to get them to sell, to pay them to take their sewage and to process it and to work it. So that is an example of a good manager and a communicator, and going out there and engaging and having a win-win situation for everybody, because obviously those ships want to come back there and they want a good relationship with the islands. And then by getting involved with the tourists, because most people are literate out there, they're aware of the problems. It's in media, it's everywhere. So there's not nobody that's unconscious about it, but they maybe just haven't been engaged or offered the support. So as BRs, by offering people also the support to deal with their materials or with their waste, instead of just saying, that's wrong, this is what you should do, but by providing services and being there to do it for them. Then another thing that came up is farms or practices along rivers with the leachate of pesticides or herbicides into the waters, which we do not see, and that runs down into the oceans. So pollution is not just about what you can see, but what is going on and what you can't see. And so going back to what is a description or a person that is going to fight for ocean awareness, is the elements of a good BR manager, I think, is to be able to communicate with people, to relate to people, understand the complexity of communities, and not just at your local base, but broader than that, and then looking beyond the human element of all animal, all living and non-living interactions. So with that said, and then going back to, it's not a one-man or one-show man. You need to support these BRP managers, or a person that is going to be a fighter for ocean awareness needs to be supported throughout society, and there are many different ways to do this, but support, acknowledgement, and then creates that bigger awareness, which is a constant roll-on effect, and being hands-on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Actually, what you described is not just an ocean literate person, but mostly an ocean advocate. So this is very important. I mean, to bring in knowledge with communication skills and willingness to act. Thank you. Group 2, I think, is Irini.
Okay, so hello everybody. To start with, in our group, we discussed that all people should be ocean literate because there's a lot of ignorance for the ocean environment. So an ocean literate person should understand that essential principles and the fundamental concepts about the functioning of the ocean, and they can communicate in a meaningful way and are able to make informed and responsible decisions regarding the ocean. We also emphasized about communication and how important an element is to raise awareness about ocean problems, and also that education plays an important role again to shape an ocean literate person. Also in our group, we discussed about biodiversity threats, about different sources of ocean pollution, and about the links to ocean literacy. Also about the attitudes and how tourists, like for example, we gave some examples for how tourists behave on beaches, and that there should be a lot of knowledge and appreciation for the ocean and for the environment. Also, we emphasize that we should understand the type of development and that there should be emphasis on systematic approach to development. So yes, an ocean, all these aspects that we said should be part of an ocean literate person. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Irini. Thank you very much indeed. So again, the combination understanding requires some knowledge, but also feeling things and communicating these things to the rest of the society. Group 3.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lena, and I am reporting for Group 3. Actually, I started the conversation with my sort of romantic notion that ocean literacy for me is about teaching people more about the feelings that they should have sort of for the ocean, so that they establish a connection, and they therefore from this connection they get a feeling of responsibility for the ocean, and from this there comes the feeling of wanting to protect it, wanting to keep it safe, and then all the knowledge can be acquired that you need about resources, about pollution, etc. And then Marie from Lebanon, and Matrono from the Philippines, and Calliope, who is working on Crete, actually told me that I'm being a bit too romantic, and that actually ocean literacy also needs to be accompanied by adequate policies and the laws to sort of enforce it sometimes, because they gave examples of people really taking protected like stones, for example, from Tenerife that people are not allowed to take them, but they do as a souvenir. And they take pink sand from the beaches in Crete, although this is also not a good thing to do. So they said that in different cultures there might be different needs also for the appropriate laws that sort of help people to stick to what they should feel, actually. So these were our thoughts.
Thank you very much, because you brought together two aspects, very important both. Your approach, I should say, is not romantic, is the most essential part, which is all of us have. And this is the ecocentric part. We have the anthropocentric part approaching nature in particular, and the ecocentric. The anthropocentric, either for ourselves or as public good, is always utilitarian. Your approach is the connection we have with something that is not man-made. It is something beyond us. So it is, for all of us, it is the starting point of admiration and approach of the intrinsic value of the ocean, of nature. And this is the source of inspiration. It was always, and it will be. Otherwise, we'll not have poets, we'll not have painters, we don't have some of the nicest parts of human creation. And at the same time, we need to regulate behaviors, good and bad, of people approaching or appreciating or not appreciating. So a literate person should develop the feelings for the sea, but also the respect. And as communicator and advocate, as the first group said, we need to stress also this aspect, that in order to be actually able to continue having the marine environment providing ecological services, we need also the regulation and respect. So I think we close the circle. Let's hear for the next group as well.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. My name's Paul. I'm up from the West Coast here in Oregon, USA, and we had a discussion about some of the resource limitations and the needs, ocean acidification, fisheries, and the like. But what I think we got into more so were some of the other ecosystem services that the ocean provides, that we need to have people reflecting on issues associated with carbon sequestration, associated with oxygen production. So, and I think that led into some thinking, at least for me, that, if you can at least touch people and gain their understanding that they're breathing as a result of the ocean, not so much to the Amazon, but the ocean, maybe that's a way to communicate. And so, but the key for an ocean literate person is to have behavioral changes. It's not just about knowledge. I think that's the key, is we actually have to have actions. And so to gain those actions, the discussion kind of led to, I'm sorry, but we're not doing it at age 51 myself. We got to look at the youth. We haven't done it. And so Greta's name was invoked as a spokesperson for the world. But youth in general, I think, are a really good tool or a opportunity to connect. And through education and through field trips, there was discussion about creating a habit of ocean protectionism, if you will. And so it's really a opportunity to instill in young people the value of the ocean, and at a very early age, and that just follows them through their life. And then on the technical side, there was a little bit of discussion we had on some of the tools to help in this way. So a kind of a crowdsourced project being developed in South Africa about river pollution, and take a smartphone, take it and snap a picture, kind of like your iNaturalist projects, and be able to determine what kind of pollutants are in these riverine systems that would eventually hit the ocean. So excited to hear more from that. And out here, we've developed what is called a Rackline app on iNaturalist. So we're working to have citizen scientists, again, community sourced, crowdsourcing, of information about what is washing ashore. And for our project, it's a climate change initiative. And so we're looking at different species that are coming ashore and the timing of such as a way of tracking climate change, just like you might track the blooming of a flower or some terrestrial plant. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much indeed, because you described not only what is the content of and the necessary elements for a literate person, but also how to obtain it. It is through the combination, and I would like to stress all the points you said are important and complementary to what it was already said. But with the major ecological services, oxygen production, and the water cycle, it is so important to bring to everybody the knowledge first of the importance of people living even far away from the sea, how important the ocean as part of our planet is. And also then the link you made about how we learn, particularly with field trips, with direct observation, with participatory science, citizen science. All this circle includes the knowledge, the communication, and the behavioral change. So I think this is a way to help in having, particularly among young people, literate, ocean literate people. And this decade is exactly for this. So thank you very much. I don't know, do we have one more? I think Romina is asking for the floor. No? I don't know.
Actually, Romina joined the last group, group 5. I was in group 5, and we were a quite small group, and I was kindly asked to convey our key messages that I'm afraid that most of them are covered from the previous groups. We also talked about the knowledge needed to be aware of the science evidence. I'm talking about an ocean literate person, to have willingness to act, to have the communications skills needed to transfer the message, and also to be emotionally connected to the ocean. Two, let's say, new elements that I would like to bring in this discussion is that we focused on when it comes to knowledge, most people, particularly the younger ones, students, let's say, might know marine issues related to their own local context, but there are huge gaps when it comes to the bigger picture, what is going on at the regional or the international level. So we stress this element. And another thing is that in order to translate this ocean literate person, the willingness and the behavior to action needs to be aware of how. So we need to share good examples of actions, of projects to exchange. We need to give the examples that have an impact when it comes to activities related to marine protection and ocean conservation. That's all from us.
Thank you, Vicky. Actually, the element, the knowledge of local versus global and vice versa is very important. We have quite frequently real ignorance, even of people who work with the sea, the local sea. They don't understand fully because they extrapolate the situation from their area to the entire, let's say, planet. And this is not the case. Very few people know that the land-based sources are by far more important than the, let's say, ships. Ships are important for hydrocarbons pollution and a few other things, but there is no comparison whatsoever with what comes from bad management inland. So there are these kind of things are so basic, still not known. Also, the different type of activities, offshore activities, that many people don't know at all because they are not near these activities, or many other things. So, or the ghost nets, for example, or so these kind of things need to be. There are elements of knowledge that trigger further interest and involvement. And I think we need the combination for that. So thank you very much all. I think we have, perhaps, Iro, you have listed this kind of, they are recorded, they are complementary, they are, the main lines are common, but they are enriching, the one group is enriching the other, and that's very positive.
And I hope that at the end of this discussion, I don't think we don't have any other group, yes? Or do we?
No.
So I hope that you all feel a little bit more ocean literate.
I think they co-created here our own, from this session, our own list of not only the content, but also, to a certain extent, also the means, the methods to shape a literate, ocean literate person, which are not only the young. We need to have literate also the older ones as well.
It's an inclusive process. No one
Yes.
is behind. Okay. On this,
Okay.
I don't have
Fine.
any other remarks. I see we are right on schedule. Unless there are burning questions you would like to ask, we record as always. This video will be made available later tonight in the course. And maybe you, before you leave, you want to leave us one word, an impression from this call, from this webinar.
Let me only say that this was the main, let's say, this week, the main theme was the ocean. I have raised in the last part the Nexus approach of water, energy, food, ecosystem. Well, what I wanted to say is that when we are talking about water there, usually we are talking about fresh water, but this extends the Nexus through the water cycle, extends to the marine environment, also for food, also for ecosystems and energy. So it is also part, when we say water, it includes also marine water. In principle, it's fresh water.
So with these words of Professor, I would like to ask you to switch on your cameras if you want, just to say bye-bye to us until next week, and maybe leave a word in the chat.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, grazie.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Next week.
Bye.
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 Με μια ώρα δεν κατάλαβες ότι είναι στην...